History of women's basketball. Big plays and thrilling performances were predicted by fans worldwide. However, not many were ready for what would happen at the All-Star Draft. Prior to the start of the game, Caitlin Clark, adding to the event's traditions, one of the league's most prominent young players assumed leadership in a manner seldom seen from a rookie. And making news. On the national stage, she was accompanied by famous people like Sophie Cunningham and the famous Cheryl Miller. Each of them contributed in a different way to what ended up being a historic time in the history of sports. Caitlin Clark, who has gained notoriety following her unprecedented undergraduate, had great anticipation for the days at Iowa. She immediately attracted the interest of classmates and bystanders because praised her court vision, long-range shooting, and bravery. She was so well-liked that she led. She was chosen as the captain of one of the 2 All-Star teams by all players in the All-Star fan voting. In and of itself, that was incredible, particularly because she was a novice. However, Clark didn't end there. The next thing she did startled the league. On July 8, 2025, during the live broadcast All-Star Draft, Caitlin Clark made an unprecedented feat. She calmly turned to Nia Collier, the captain of the opposing team, when it was time to determine which. At the conclusion of the draft, head coaches would be assigned to each club, suggesting a coach swap, something that had never occurred before. He will succeed her coach, Sandy Brondello, in league history. Come on, let's get it. It will be fantastic. Initially, Clark tried to exchange Sandy Brondello for Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve. Collier's club was led by the head coach of the New York Liberty. The change was approved by the league executives when Nafi Sakir laughed and concurred with Clark. This unplanned incident happened quickly. Made headlines. Additionally, nobody had switched before. It was the assurance with which Clark approached command of the circumstances. I'm not sure if this is permitted, she remarked. I said, I don't really care, before putting forward the transaction. Her audacity conveyed the idea that players are speaking up more and more and that the game is administered, especially on significant occasions like the All-Star Game. Many admirers commended her for gaining the lead and making the event more exciting. Some perceived it as a direct reaction to recent disagreements between Clark and Coach Reeve, including the criticism I had raised before in discussions regarding the Olympic team during the season. A well-known WNBA player with a solid coaching background and years of experience, Coach Cheryl Reeve was recently embroiled in controversy over Caitlin Clark's exclusion from the Olympics. Clark's decision to leave the USA women's basketball team for the Summer Olympics in Paris in 2024 was inspired by Reeve, the national team's coach. Anger between Reeve and Clark could have contributed to the rookie's choice to exclude her from the All-Star Game, regardless of Clark's actual intentions. The action, according to many fans and commentators, conveyed a subtle but impactful statement. Was handled calmly by Nfisa Collier, who had coached Reeve on her team following the trade. She joked that Clark might make a mistake with the move, since Reeve was already acquainted with all of Collier's Minnesota Connection teammates in spite of the jovial mood. This was obviously a thoughtful and serious choice. Clark desired a coach who could better comprehend her style of play, and with whom she was at ease. The coach she selected, Sandy Brondello, is renowned for her versatility, coaching approach, and close relationship with her players. Many people think that she would let Clark display the game to the fullest extent possible. As word of the coach trade circulated in athletics and on social media, another WNBA player, Sophie Cunningham, entered the discussion. Cunningham has always supported for the rights of players and challenged limits within the league. She is highly recognized for her direct personality and flaming fire. She quickly expressed her support for Clark, complimenting her self-assurance and time management skills. Cunningham understood the importance after seeing her share of difficulties in the league of a young athlete like Clark taking on a leadership position at such a young age. Furthermore, Cunningham took use of the opportunity to show how the league is changing. In the past, players frequently blindly adhered to the league's rules. The new generation of athletes is now demonstrating that they're not following in the footsteps of celebrities like Clark. When they believe something has to change, they are hesitant to speak up and take the initiative. The expansion of the league and women's. This will help athletics in general. When fans see sportsmen being genuine, Cunningham said, they feel a closer bond when they take control of their jobs and make bold choices. while Sophie and Cunningham made headlines with their audacious deeds and remarks, while renowned basketball star Cheryl Miller created a stir with her ideas and responses to the circumstances. One of the best women's basketball analysts, Cheryl Miller, players of all time, has always been a fervent supporter of the game's development and integrity. The coach swap, according to her, was one among the most thrilling and significant events in All-Star Game history. It was more than just entertainment, in her opinion. The WNBA's perception of players' authority and decision-making capacity shifted. Miller stated that this type of event demonstrated the league's progress. Players selecting or changing coaches on national television in the past would have been unimaginable. Fan interaction, player participation, and individuality are now encouraged by the league. Miller commended Clark for his assurance and expertise, pointing out that this will probably create a new standard for upcoming occasions. She thought that the WNBA would enter a new era where fans would be more enjoyable and provide gamers greater power. By the time the draft was over, the All-Star Game selections had been established. Some of the most talented young players in the league made up the core of Caitlin Clark's squad. League, such as a Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, Sada Sabali, and Aaliyah Boston. Under Sandy Brondello's direction, the team blended smart leadership with a potent offense. However, this team, under the leadership of Cheryl Reeve, comprised Alicia Gray, another formidable group, Brianna Stewart, Paige Bookers, and Mecca Mike. The July 19th All-Star Game was expected to be an amazing event that was competitive as well as full of drama, energy, and excitement. The story's ability to blur the boundaries between competitiveness and entertainment was what made it so captivating. The unscripted drama that is common in men's leagues, particularly the NBA, was first presented by Clark. There is a lot of discussion when LeBron James changes the dynamics of the squad. When Caitlin Clark started doing, the world took notice when something similar happened in the WNBA. For a league that has frequently had trouble receiving equal media attention, this was an amazing moment. Viral videos, panel discussions, and highlight reels inundated social media. Medium. The audience had expanded beyond sports enthusiasts. People who had never previously watched the WNBA became interested in it. Many observers also noted that this was not a prearranged media event. It was sincere, impromptu, and full of individuality. So many people were drawn to that sincerity. Sometimes the sports media has condemned the WNBA for being overly strict, requiring players to abide by the rules, keep quiet, and concentrate solely on the game. However, Caitlin Clark corrected it with a single sentence, and the media. One thing was also extremely evident in this period. The WNBA is expanding. Athletes were not very influential over the major decisions made for a very long time by league officials and coaches. However, the All-Star coach change indicated a change. Clark demonstrated that the players wanted to participate in the decision-making process, are prepared to take the initiative. This is also evident in many facets of the league. Athletes such as A.A. Wilson, Namiki and Brianna Stewart, who have assumed leadership positions in the Players' Union, have influenced marketing, travel and compensation policies. It's obvious that the athletes of the future will have a greater impact. The fact that the league didn't shut it down is also intriguing. The coach swap was permitted by the WNBA despite the fact that it defied the accepted format. It said a lot. That unsaid support. It functioned as a means of communication for the league. The players' voices are being heard. This kind of action would have resulted in sanctions or bad press in other leagues. However, it made news and was commended here. That shows how much the WNBA is expanding in terms of players, leadership, talent, and trust. Undoubtedly, a broader generational shift in basketball was also represented by the change in the coach. Athletes like Caitlin Clark, who exudes confidence, are part of a new breed of athletes, tech-savvy and not scared to question the established quo. This younger generation has witnessed NBA stars express themselves in both. As a child, both on and off the court. They saw how athletes used social media to communicate directly with fans. Media, player branding,